The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Texas A&M, one of the elite teams in the entire country. Missouri has a third-string quarterback. Its CFP hopes clinging to life.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies.
Big picture here, Matt. Safe to say the Mike Elko era is off to a great start for Aggies fans, huh?
Yeah, he's already got more ranked wins and top 10 wins in his first, 22 games than Jimbo Fisher and Kevin Sumlin had in like 3 or 4 years. So people are pretty excited about it. This is their highest playoff ranking, obviously, that they've had. And I could probably argue that they should be number one, which is what I did in my Wednesday show. So it's a pretty exciting time in Aggie land, that's for sure. But they've got a big test this weekend.
Well, make that argument for for my listeners really quick anyway. Why should the Aggies be number one in the country?
Well, I think that they have the best resume so far. They have the number one strength of record. I think that the Notre Dame win is more impressive than the Texas win for Ohio State or the Oregon win for Indiana. And I think that march to LSU and just beating the tar out of the Tigers at Tiger Stadium and, getting Brian Kelly fired is a better win than most of those teams have on their resume already. Then you look at the strength of schedule metrics and all of that stuff. It's just very clear that they have had the tougher path so far to this point, and they're undefeated. And if you look at the eye test, their only close game was to Auburn. That's it. I mean, Notre Dame as well, but their only close call outside of that was was Auburn. And, Indiana beat Iowa by ostensibly 3 points. So.
And yet you and I were talking off the air. You think Missouri has a real chance to make this a close game. Why is that? We're going to get into it real deeply, but just big picture, why do you think Missouri has a shot here?
Well, I think that Missouri's a really solid football team. They're very well coached by Eli Drinkwitz. They don't make a whole lot of mistakes. They run the football extremely well, which has been a weakness of Texas A&M this year. And that defense, I think, is very, very good. Those two edge rushers, led by Damone Wilson, are going to cause problems. I know Texas A&M has a really good offensive line, but those guys are dudes. And they have, statistically, one of the top two defenses in the SEC. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game that, hey, if you can force a couple turnovers here or there, or whoever makes the mistake, the biggest mistake first is going to end up losing the football game. So I think it's going to be a lot tighter than people think.
Yeah, well, our friends at FanDuel definitely agree with you. It was 6.5, 7 last I saw, kind of bouncing back between those two numbers. One thing that's interesting, of course, is this is Marcel Reed's second year as a sort of, I don't know, what is this, half of a year was a starter last season. The reason it's a little ironic, Missouri did not see Marcel Reed famously last year. Eli Drinkwitz was not buying the talk that, no, Connor Wigman's actually going to start. Well, he did start and played quite well. I guess my question is, Marcel Reed, is he a better player than he was last season, or is this more just, hey, they got a couple of great portal receivers and that's really juiced the offense?
Well, I think that he has taken a few steps forward for sure. He's cleaned up his mechanics a lot. He's been more accurate with the football. I think he's making better decisions than he did last year, and he just has a really good connection with these wide receivers as well. Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion have been unbelievable, but in part because Marcel Reed has been throwing the football very, very well and getting them the ball in space. And I think that his second year really in the system with Colin Klein has paid huge dividends. They seem to be really on the same page. Colin Klein calls things that he really, really likes and that he's comfortable with. He doesn't ask him to do too much. And it's just been kind of a perfect marriage. Now, has he been the best quarterback in the SEC? I don't think so. I think he's a Heisman contender for sure, just based on the betting odds. I think he's fourth right now, but he hasn't been perfect. He still has a few accuracy issues here and there, but by and large, I think he's taken a major step forward this season. And I honestly think this is going to be the biggest test that he's seen so far this year, because I really do believe in that Missouri defense a whole hell of a lot.
Well, that's a really big compliment. I'm a big believer in that Auburn defense as well. But I agree with you. Missouri's defense is stout for sure. And just generally speaking, what are Reed's strengths and weaknesses as a player?
Well, I think that, number one, you talk about his legs. He's one of the faster players on the offense, and he's not afraid to move outside of the pocket and get downfield as soon as the opportunity presents itself. So in a scenario where, those two edge rushers are coming for Missouri and they get outside, he's not going to be afraid to step up in the pocket and hit the rush lane and go for a big gain. And I think that that's been a huge part of what they do. I also think that, his accuracy on short to mid-range stuff has been very good. His decision-making in the RPO game has been very good. Where he still kind of struggles a little bit is his downfield passing. A lot of the Texas A&M explosives have come on shorter concepts that have just, based on the athleticism of the receivers, have caused them to break big.
Sure.
But he's a very good decision-maker right now, and he's not afraid to put his body on the line and pick up some yards on the ground either.
Yeah, and the thing with that Texas A&M offense is they're very balanced. They can run the football with those tailbacks as well, which makes them, to me, obviously one of the elite offenses in the entire country. But you did not mention Arkansas, for example. That game ended up, on the scoreboard at least, being fairly close. The Aggies gave up a lot of points to the Razorbacks in that game. I almost think that's sort of coloring people's perception a little bit of Texas A&M's defense and probably just how good their offense is. But in my opinion, that's still a pretty solid A&M defensive unit. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe big plays kind of a weakness, but otherwise a really solid team, it seems like to me.
Well, I think that one of the things about that Arkansas game was Taylon Green was just playing out of his mind. When that guy is playing really, really good football, he's incredibly hard to stop. There are some things that you can do to this Texas A&M defense that give them problems. Number one, running the football has been an issue for them on multiple occasions. It was an issue against Notre Dame, UTSA, a few other games here and there. They have had games where I expected them to struggle a little bit more in that department, and they definitely proved me wrong. So that was, that it's kind of been up and down throughout the season. They have given up a few explosive plays here and there. But I don't think that there's necessarily one thing outside of running the ball that you can do to this Texas A&M defense that really causes them a whole lot of problems, especially when their pass rush is really generating, a lot of pressure. Cassius Howell has been unbelievable this season so far. He's probably been the best pass rusher in the SEC, at least in SEC play. And if you're going to attack them, I think that one thing that would play a key role for Missouri is Matt Zoller's legs. I think he's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for, and he can really get out there and scoot if he wants to. So that's something, again, that Taylon Green did that really gave Texas A&M problems, was him using his legs and his athleticism to get outside of the pocket and get down the field.
Yeah, on Zollers, I would agree with you for all you Texas A&M and Missouri fans out there who haven't obviously seen much of Zollers yet, just based on especially what I've seen from him in high school. I don't know that he's going to be a quarterback designed run guy like Pribula was a lot, but he can definitely scramble and buy time for himself and pick up those 3rd and 8s when you need him to against man coverage, that kind of deal. So
the NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I want to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Playoff implications in Iowa City. Ducks, Hawkeyes in a battle for aerial supremacy.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Trent, coming into this season, when I was evaluating Oregon's schedule, Iowa was easily a top 5 most difficult game for the Ducks entering this year. It's on the road later in the year. There will be some elements in all likelihood that both teams will have to deal with. That'll be a second straight game for Oregon after the rain and windstorm they had at Autzen against Wisconsin. But I still feel good about Oregon's chances to win this game. I definitely feel less confident than I did before the season because Iowa has been playing some good ball.
Yeah, the defense has taken such a huge step forward. And I know when a lot of people, and certainly on the crossover with the Oregon fans, think of Iowa football, you think of defense and atrocious offense, and that's what it's been for the better part of the last 6 seasons. This defense, though, in the first month of the year was not very good. The first half against Rutgers was doing whatever they wanted. I don't know what happened in the locker room, what defensive coordinator Phil Parker said, or more importantly, what he did. He was dialing up a lot more pressure after that, and that's been the team we've seen here in the last month. But, Spencer, when we did our Big Ten talks throughout the course of the summertime, I told you this was always the one that I had circled because Iowa coming into the year had 2 top 10 teams coming to Kinnick Stadium. And coming into the year, I thought, well, Penn State, that's going to be impossible. So this is the more likely of the 2 that I was going to pull off the upset. Here we are. Now we know what happened to Penn State as we.
Yeah, they got broken by Oregon. You're welcome. You're welcome.
That aside, it worked. We'll take the victory any way that we can get it. But here we are again. And, there's very little matchup wise. We'll talk about some of, I think, the elements that Iowa is going to have to do to pull off this upset here. There isn't anything stylistically that you point to and say, oh yeah, this is the reason I was going to pull off the upset. I can see here and look at all the hair on my chest and say, look at me, I was going to pull the upset because there's really nothing definitive that you can point to. I like to live in reality. I don't like the fanboy part of we're just going to say it to say it. I have to have reasons to really believe. There aren't a ton of reasons to believe that Iowa can do it when you're just looking schematically at what's going to happen and the way it goes. The way that Iowa pulls these off, though, they ugly it up. You don't know how they do it, but they do it, and they've done it so many times throughout the years. That's what gives, I think, Hawkeye fans the most hope going into Saturday.
Thanks for giving us all the chest hair visual, Trent. We were waiting for that. I know that Oregon fans are delighted.
Yes,
yeah. I know they're delighted to have that in their minds now. But I think for Iowa in this spot, you talked about muddying it up, make it ugly, low scoring, all that. This is the second straight game where Oregon is going to have to think, or at least I think fans should be conscious of the fact that it might not be the easiest conditions for offense. I think that favors the Hawkeyes. You got to go out and find a way to win. Oregon did against Wisconsin in some truly awful conditions by I think it was the 7:40 mark of the second quarter. Winds were over 20 miles an hour, and it was raining, and it was not raining a little. There's a mantra. I'm sure you don't know this, Trent. I don't know why you would. But Don Essig, the longtime PA announcer for Oregon Athletics, I don't even remember the exact origin. I'd have to look it up to be sure. Always says it never rains at Autzen Stadium.
I heard some Indiana buddies that were out of the game. They said they heard that, and they said that was a lie at that game.
Yeah. No, I've been there. I've been there when it rains. It can physically rain. Metaphorically, never rains at Autzen Stadium. But I do think that's a notable point. We don't know how bad exactly it is going to get, but if these two teams have to rely on defense, run game, and special teams, I think Oregon's incredibly capable in that regard. Don't get me wrong, because I love the way they've run the ball. Special teams have been solid. James Ferguson-Reynolds has been a weapon at punter. I know I have to bring his name up on an Iowa show here. Yeah, he's been great. He was a spring portal addition. He has been absolutely phenomenal. I think Oregon can do that. I think it is still fair to point out that if it does become hindering to offenses with the rain and wind, then I think that helps Iowa a little bit more.
And it's been funny, and there's another social media debate I want to talk to maybe a little bit later on with Phil Parker and how upset some Oregon fans got about a very innocuous comment that he made, but we'll get to that later on. But this debate that's also happening with some of our friends in the online community, going back and forth about the weather. There's nobody in Iowa that is trying to say, or at least I hope very few people are trying to say, that you guys don't deal with conditions out there. You guys are not USC or Arizona State coming here to 40-degree weather. It's the Pacific Northwest. Of course, Yes, you guys deal with rain. But I think, Spencer, you laid it out very well. It's not that you guys aren't used to it or anything like that. It's when you have elements like that, it closes the gap, right? And we go back to kind of my original point. How does Iowa continue to win these kind of games? How do you look historically how Iowa pulls these upsets? You get them pulled down in the muck, you ugly it up, and in bad conditions, that's another recipe to make that happen. Another reason that I liked Iowa during the summertime, and this week I'm kind of going the other way. I don't feel nearly as confident as I did when I was making those grandiose comments, is because you go back to a year ago, a very bad Wisconsin team. You guys went out there and it was one of those ugly games. And it looked so much like an Iowa game. That's what kind of gave me hope. That Oregon team was flying high. They were playing at an incredibly high level. And that bad Wisconsin team was able to ugly it up and have a chance in the fourth quarter. That is, I think, the hope and the recipe certainly for this Iowa team. And yes, the bad weather, that's going to help, I believe, the Hawkeyes.
I never actually felt like Oregon had a chance to lose the Wisconsin game because I knew Wisconsin was not going to score.
Braden Locke.
Yeah, they weren't going to score 2 possessions in the game earlier this year, but it definitely was not the sort of offensive game Oregon should have had in the first quarter. It was sunny and it was fine there, and Oregon did not play well. I've talked about that a lot, but one other thing that frankly I did not anticipate coming into this season, Trent, was the playoff ramifications for Iowa. For Oregon, it's very real, and I want your thoughts on this because Oregon comes in at number 9, Iowa at number 20. The Hawkeyes should be ranked, and they are. Good for the committee for getting right what the AP voters got very, very wrong, coming off their blowout win against Minnesota a couple weeks ago. So for Oregon, the CFP committee chair talked about how, we think Oregon's a really good team. They're great up front, and they've had some solid wins, but they don't have the strongest resume. And I understand that if you don't view Penn State as the win that it was and you look at it now and where things have gone, like, okay, I get that. Still, though, the stakes are higher for Iowa when you're talking about the playoff because they have to win every game from here on out. If they do, they're probably in the college football playoff. Oregon could lose this game, but when you had your first playoff rankings and the CFP committee chair says, resume's not that good, when you're playing a ranked team on the road, it is very important for the perception of Oregon's schedule that the Ducks win this football game.
Well, and you said it, if they run the table, you think they're a lock. Iowa at 10-2 is getting into the college football playoff.
Yeah.
There is not a scenario out there that they are not amongst the 12 teams selected. The resume will be better than almost anybody else that you can put up there at 10-2, realistically, outside of a couple of SEC teams. And we know that's a conversation for a different day and a different show when we're talking about that. Yeah. The ramifications are real. And, with this Iowa team, the disappointment of what happened in Ames, obviously Indiana had them beat. Your backup quarterback completes a screen pass. You got a chip shot field goal to win with a second left in the ball game. It's game over, and Iowa walks out of there a victory 16-13 against Indiana. Alas, here we are, and now your backs are against the wall. But Iowa does have to run the table, and this is just kind of the first step in the process. Now, the following week, if Iowa does pull it off this week, and maybe this is a reason that my excitement isn't quite at the highest level, is because I know it waits. It's Iowa going on the road to the West Coast that has been a disaster. Well, I'm 45 for basically all of my years. Anytime that Iowa's gone out there, it has been a disaster. It doesn't matter if it's a Rose Bowl, a regular season game. It has been awful outside of a Holiday Bowl against USC 6-7 years ago. That's been about the only time that it's gone well. So that's what still awaits them. Still, in the front, having it here, and getting to November with this real opportunity. Spencer, you remember a year ago, Iowa came into the season preseason top 25 for most everybody. They were kind of one of those dark horse teams coming into the year. Cade McNamara got broken again. He stunk. The offense stunk again, though the ground game was awesome with Caleb Johnson, and they lost a couple of early games. So we didn't have even the buildup now that we have. If it happens, you get another week of it, another week of that excitement. Look, Iowa's program's at a different place than Oregon. You guys are talking about competing, not just getting into the playoff, but making a run when you get into the playoff. We're searching for that. We've never been in the college football playoff. We were an inch away from doing it back in 2015 and lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. But that's what's in front. And that's why this week, and with the bye week kind of on top of it, it's been a lot of fun. But we know ramifications. This is just 1 of 4 for the Hawkeyes.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I want to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
DJ Durkin is trying to win games to become Auburn's next head coach.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
From the Auburn point of view on this, it's okay, DJ Durkin, can he do enough down the stretch to be considered to be Auburn's next head coach? A lot of Auburn fans are saying yes, he can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been a head coach before, and that he's got that going in his favor. It seems like from what I've heard, the players are rallying around him.
Yeah, that's fair.
And they really, and if you just watch this defense play all year long, even during the Hugh Freeze era, they play super hard for him. And those guys are like on point. And if the offense was ever even halfway there on point, y'all would have been a lot better of a team. But it was just such a mess offensively. Like the defense just would just run out of gas almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Or sometimes they just, lose, 10-3 or whatever. Yeah. So, Auburn, one of three defenses to not allow more than 24 points in any game this year. The other two is number one, and the other one is ranked number 2. And then that's Auburn.
That's wild.
It's wild. Corey, this one to me, and we've talked a little bit off air about this earlier in the week. This game has the makings to look really similar to last year's game.
Mm-hmm.
Has your opinion changed on that at all?
No, not at all. I think the way Auburn plays defense, the way Vanderbilt plays defense, as inefficient and ineffective, and we have no idea what's going to happen with the new play caller, Ashton Daniels, quarterback 1 for the team that was just announced earlier. All of that combined leads to like a 14-7, 20-10, 24. Like, yeah, I think for this particular matchup, like 20-17 would be high scoring.
Yeah, I think the over under at FanDuel is like 44.5. And I'm like, that just seems so high to me. We'll confirm that in a second. But
yeah. It was 45.5 at one point. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Still, that just seems high.
Mm-hmm.
I think Auburn's going to slow down Pavia to the sense of like, he has like what they did last year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get shut out. And I think that's about what this defense would have to do, I think, for Auburn to be able to pull off this upset on the road. But look, we've seen this movement of these interim coaches getting a bump throughout college football. If I'm Vandy, I'm looking and saying like, okay, well, what happened with UCLA? What happened with Arkansas early on? Can Auburn get that bump with Hugh Freeze no longer part of the offense? Derek Nix has been labeled the full-time play caller. He'll call plays on every down. That might have been a little bit of a shot. I don't know, but does Auburn get enough of a jolt to be able to outscore Diego Pavia and Vandy? I could talk myself into it if I really wanted to, but like I don't think that.
Yeah, it honestly has everything to do with how Vanderbilt comes out in this game. Like if they come out flat, if they come out sloppy, penalties, not tackling, all of that stuff, I think you're looking at a team that could get a jolt, right? Mm-hmm. If Vanderbilt comes out and just shuts Auburn down the first couple of drives, I could see that offense just going into the tank a little bit. And that defense just hanging on for dear life, and Vanderbilt just outlasting them, not necessarily like blowing them out, but just kind of outlasting them, almost kind of like what happened last year, where Auburn got off to that early start, Vanderbilt answered right back, and then they just traded jabs for 3.5 quarters, and then Vanderbilt just kind of nudged ahead, and Vanderbilt's just got to keep that same energy going, and they can't really let Auburn get. If they knock Auburn down, they can't let them get up. And if they do, Auburn's got the talent to be able to pull this off. But it all depends on Vanderbilt's defense. Can they contain? Can they tackle well on the perimeter? They have in some games. Other games, especially Texas, they have tackled atrociously on the perimeter. So it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation out there.
And that's kind of been Vandy's strength, is how like technically sound they are. Where like they don't really let mistakes beat them. Mm-hmm. That wasn't really the case against Texas. Auburn's the opposite offensively, is they'll let mistakes beat them over and over and over and over again. Defensively, obviously the defense has been great, but offensively, it's like if something goes against them, they've just had no ability to like overcome it.
Yeah, especially in the second half. Like that Georgia game was probably one of the worst examples I've ever seen of that. Maybe even the Kentucky game. I was part of the sicko crew that actually watched that game. It was ugly. I don't know, like from y'all's perspective, if it was uglier than from my perspective. I was just enjoying it from afar and just like
enjoying that is a sicko word to describe that game.
I was just like, what am I seeing here? Like this is, we're a banana peel away from being the Mississippi State 3-2 game. And y'all were involved in that one too, weren't you?
We were. Yeah. We keep finding our ways to be involved in these disasters. Yeah. I mean, I think the plan was to like move on from Freeze after this game if they lost because of the bye week that Auburn has after this. But, the Kentucky thing was such a disaster. Like John Cohen had to fire him.
I mean, it was epically bad. Like your defense repeatedly gave y'all opportunities to score and you couldn't do it.
Correct. Yeah. And the only reason they had 3 points is because Elijah Melendez had that interception return. So there would have been something fitting about Diego Pavia beating Hugh Freeze for the last game. Like I think there probably would have been something.
That would have been so fun. Like, I just wish it would have just lasted one more week so that Pavia.
I'm glad it's over. Personally, I think we have more of a chance to beat Vandy now than we did last week because of that jolt. Because I'm excited to see what Derek Nix does. I don't think he's really been given this opportunity before. I mean, he was the OC under Kiffin, so what does that even mean? And then obviously under Freeze. So I mean, what a cool opportunity for Derek Nix, a guy who's universally liked in the industry. And now he gets to call plays. So I'm excited to see exactly what this looks like. Do they have a little bit more of a game plan? Are they more focused? Are they more intense? We'll see. But DJ Durkin, this is a big game for him as far as him saying, hey, I'm worthy of it. I'm worthy of being considered being Auburn's next head coach.
Now,
Corey
Zach,
Danny's playing for a playoff spot.
They are. I have a quick question for you, though.
Yes.
With the whole interim switch over and change it, with it not being a bye week, with it just being a regular game week, do they really have time to make a lot of wholesale changes, or are they just going to try to hang on for dear life and get to the bye week so that they can kind of regroup?
I'm not expecting a whole lot of changes. I thought the quarterback situation was interesting because you had an opportunity to go back to Jackson, keep Ashton, or just throw it all out and go with Deuce Knight, who, a lot of people are presuming is the future, and you chose to go with Ashton. So I think that would signify, at least on that they're not too eager to throw everything out. I don't think personnel has been the issue, Corey. I think a lot of it's been play calling and scheme and just doing stuff that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. I think play calling would fix a lot of it. Has Auburn's offensive line been great? No, but I don't think that's all of it. I think that's just kind of been the most glaring thing that we all see. I mean, when you have a quarterback who doesn't hold on to the foot, or when you have a quarterback that holds onto the ball too long, the O-line wears that. Mm-hmm. When you have play calling that doesn't make sense, the O-line wears that. When you have 3rd and long every single series, the offensive line wears that. And I don't think the O-line is as bad as people are making it out to be, but it hasn't been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So if you wanted to make some personnel changes there, I guess you could, but I'm not expecting anything, to answer your question.